I wanted to ask Gio about all those, trans people in Brazil. I mean, in a Catholic way,
Oh boy.
that is very
Oh,
matrix.
that's
This
a
is
thing.
extremely matrix.
Oh yeah.
Shape shifting, becoming something else, transhumanism, and
Skinwalkers.
that is very
Oh,
interesting in this religious, renewal in a Catholic context, because that
Yeah.
is something that I see how to drive out this Ahrimani way of thinking and bring in the gods into this Catholic way of thinking, saints and renewing some kind of a new Christianity
Hmm.
and saving the world, reunifying, the world. So I think that the Latin American I mean, leftist mindset and Catholicism, all those things, and the sentiments against America, all those things, it brings, a very interesting mix of some kind of revolution in the world. Nobody's, looking at Latin America as, a place where you can have all those, and you have your own Nazis as well, right?
Well, yeah, that's
They're
like,
all there. Hezbollah is there. Nazis are
oh
there.
yeah.
Jews are there. Everyone are there. Nobody cares.
I think the thing is,
Mossad is there.
oh,
I want to team up with Hezbollah to fight Mossad in Brazil. That sounds fantastic.
Hezbollah is pretty based. Yeah. That would be a sound clip right there. Um, I think,
You're the new America.
yeah. Well,
Mm.
here's the thing about Brazil. Brazil is unique because a lot of different forces are coming together, as you mentioned. Because Brazil has a lot of emphasis on what is like European style, like Latin American style, action orientated politics. A lot of the activism is being imported, and a lot of like from the 70s onward, after the fall of the military junta, a lot of like niche European concepts such as brutalism, such as Lacanianism, such as a Western critical theory has been imported into Brazilian universities. But at the same time, we also see the rise of different right wing and far right forces in Brazil recently after the sort of devastating collapse of Lula, where you had a lot of these like Western, like educated Delusians and Lacanians. They all like were just drooling and cooming over Lula, their boy, their man who was educated in the West. But he was a terrible failure. And so now we have a resurgence. There's a really good article in American Affairs that was linked months ago by my friend Nathan Duffy, friend of the show, about the rise of the new right in Brazil. And so what you have now is sort of a galvanization of national purpose, and especially around Catholicism within Brazil, because Brazil still is very much a land of contradictions. You have the highest, like among the highest gay population, highest trans population in Latin America, yet you have the highest amount of active practicing Catholics in the same nation. So, for example, France is of a very similar character where they have the highest amount of trad Catholics next to the highest amount of positive atheists. So I don't know. It seems unfortunately, a lot of the vibrancy is being crowded out with Western political categorization. So, like, critical theory is being imported there and so forth. So, it's very interesting because in Brazil, you still have a bit of a tolerance of edginess. So, for example, it's no big deal that Bolsonaro can call his critics homosexuals and he could go and call media figures homos. But yet, at the same time, Brazil does have like this, because Brazilian Catholicism up until recently, because there's now like traditional Catholicism being having a resurgence. Brazilian Catholicism and Latin American Catholicism is different. It's very much enmeshed with liberation politics, and it's very much almost enmeshed with a lot of like a different conglomeration of various like Latin American
Folk
and also,
religions.
yeah, like African and Latin American folk religions, especially even more so in Brazil than I would say um, Chile or Mexico in the north, because Brazil has such a high Afro-Brazilian population.
mm,
They have a lot of shamanic tendencies, but yet at the same time there is a resurgence of trad Catholicism because now they feel more comfortable, more emboldened under Bolsonaro. And a lot of people, even regular people, they're starting to have a sort of mini religious revival in Brazil. And but at the same time, a lot of these Western NGOs, they're funding a lot of like, as per usual, they're funding a lot of like NGOs and pro globo, you know what, groups. So yeah, it's very fascinating. All the interesting shit is really happening outside of the West. It's pathetic because it's like here we have like race riots and we have COVID and we have stuff like that, but it's really, I wouldn't even, even though like, here's a controversial take, like even though businesses and are being destroyed and people are being killed and there's terrorists in the streets and the media is playing cover for it, and you know, GoFundMe is supporting terrorists, Antifa, yet they're getting rid of funding for Kyle Rittenhouse. To me, I still think that politics is largely passive and online and like very almost effeminate in some ways, because counterculture itself, cancel culture itself is this very passive sort of like neutered Maoism that we're finding. It's not like as in your face. It's only very recently that like under Obama till now that we have like active protests in the streets that are becoming violent. Not even during the Iraq War. So in the West, we have a very like, I would say like unmasculine version of activist politics. Even leftists back in the 60s, the Weather Underground, they actively bombed like government buildings and wanted to put people in camps. But nowadays it's like you do have terrorists, you have Antifa terrorists, and you do have boogaloo retards. Sorry, I didn't mean to say retards. I meant to say yeah, whatever. You do have people who are Fed posting on the streets, but yet at the same time it seems that a lot of our politics has become like our lifestyles in general, very, especially under the pandemics, it's become this like individualist, isolated online thing where even people within the crowd of a protest, they are there for individualist reasons. They like to think they're part of a collective, and now we're seeing quasi-religious symbols like the fist,
the big brown
being
fist,
raised.
yeah.
Like, you see that video?
The George Floyd procession.
Yeah, the George Floyd procession with the fists in the air. We're seeing this quasi-revival of politicized, mystic, folkloric religion.
What was that
But
thing
at the
they were
same
doing
time,
with
it's
the
just
sheets?
politics.
Like they had some sheets in their hands and they were like swinging them around and dancing.
Yeah. But see, this is again this expression of these collective unconscious forces, but they're coming out in a very like pastiche, very like
Autistic.
autistic, I guess you could say, but rootless and decontextualized and internet-based and secularized, profane, inverted forms, not genuine mystical experiences. Now we just have politics. It's disgusting to me. But
feels like a parody. Like it seems like something you read in a sketch.
Long rant, but yeah, it is a parody. It totally is.